While reading this book, I started my first handwriting journal by pulling out all of the passages or quotes that struck me and writing them in my handwriting journal with my best handwriting. The following is a slideshow of all of the quotes I picked out that I felt were significant or had an impact on me in some way and how I wanted to raise my children. The consequence of truth is great, therefore the judgment of it must not be negligent. A child's mind is a spiritual organism with an appetite for all knowledge. The divine spirit has constant access to their spirits and is their continual helper in all the interests, duties, and joys of life. I found this immensely comforting, the thought of the Holy Spirit being there to help me parent, and that they're God's children too, and He has not abandoned me to do this alone. The mother is qualified, and qualified by the Creator Himself, to become the principal agent in the development of her child. Maternal love is the first agent in education. Pestalozzi. This goes along with the idea that your child was chosen for you and for a reason. What kind of example you are to your child is up to you. It is very clear that you have something to learn from your child, and your child has something to learn from you. Nothing is trivial that concerns a child. His foolish seeming words and ways are pregnant with meaning for the wise. It is in the infinitely little we must study the infinitely great. I believe our best way to study the Creator is to study His creations, and that includes our children and ourselves. I shall never make a sailor if I can't face the wind and rain. This quote was said by a child, and it just goes to show that they understand more than we give them credit for. A prince committed to the fostering care of peasants. This is a commentary on the divine immortal, allowing imperfect beings to raise the children of God, even in imperfect ways. But I believe even that is moving towards righteous purposes and righteous ends. They must perceive that their governors are law compelled, which is to mean that it's not up to me. I'm not arbitrarily telling you what to do. I am following the laws and rules that are governing me. And that means God's laws, because they're the ones that we submit to the highest authority, and that is following God's laws above all else. One of the secrets of the educator is to present nothing as stale knowledge, but to put himself in the position of the child and wonder and admire with him. This is one of those blessings that comes from being around children, is their awe. It's a wonderful experience to allow that freshness and that newness of life in this world to fill you up and nourish your soul. The human brain is like a millstone turning ever round and round. If it have nothing else to grind, it must itself be ground. I believe this poem is speaking to our need to keep our minds sharp, and that means to keep our talents practiced and to not let them grow rusty through the abuse of neglect. What we know, we struggle to express. And this quote made it into my favorites list because I've often felt this. I have these thoughts in my head. I don't always have the best way to express them. She will point to some lovely flower or gracious tree, not only as a beautiful work, but a beautiful thought of God, in which we may believe He finds continual pleasure and in which He is pleased to see His human children rejoice in. I do believe that the beauty of creation is another one of those blessings that we're allowed to rejoice and fill our souls with. It's a balm to us. The formation of habits is education, and education is the formation of habits. This, my dears, is Charlotte Mason at her best. Education is not this endless, mindless memorization, but is the habit of seeking, the habit of learning, the habit of adhering to the truth, and these habits are more important than any types of dates or facts that you could memorize. Children should be saved the effort of decision. There does come a point when you pass the baton and they start making their own decisions, but that is not when they're babies, and it's not when they're smaller. It's when they've grown their brains in. Give the child control over his own nature to enable him to hold himself in hand as much in regard to the traits we call good as to those we call evil. I love this because it teaches that you are in charge of your nature. Your nature is not in charge of you. You can nurture yourself out of your nature because Charlotte Mason's of the belief that your habits and the habits you develop are 10 times stronger than your nature. So it's about being conscious of what your habits are and directing the development of your own habits. And that, my dears, is how you educate a child. You teach them how to direct the development of their own habits. And I love that. Habit is 10 natures. Strong as nature is, habit is tenfold as strong. Habit forces nature into new channels. Children should learn every form of activity which requires a training of the muscles at an early age. Muscles and joints have to grow to a modified pattern, and this growth and adaptation take place with the greatest facility in early youth. This is just a commentary on how it is easier to learn skills and abilities when you are younger. You are developing, you're growing, you're learning, and that's when it's easier to pick things up. You can have them as second nature when you learn them as a child, and it takes you a bit longer when you're an adult. Every day, every hour, the parents are either passively or actively forming those habits in their children upon which, more than anything else, future character and conduct depend. Eventually, the children make their own conscious decisions, but until then, it is the parents who are there to make conscious decisions. Tact, watchfulness, persistence are the qualities she must cultivate in herself, and with these she will be astonished at the readiness with which the child picks up the new habit. And these are the qualities you use to help your child learn something new. You're watchful, you're patient, and you're full of tact. Of two things she will be careful: that he never slips, and that she never lets the matter be a cause of friction between herself and the child. This reminds me that it's not a fight. I'm just teaching my child how to walk. And so here's a new habit I want to teach you, and I'm going to hold your hand through it. Let them make their mud pies freely, but that over, they should be impatient to remove every trace of soil, and should do it themselves. So here we have an example of messy exploratory play where the child is making a mess, and it's allowed, as long as the child knows how to clean up after themselves. A life full of healthy interests and activities is amongst the surest preventives of secret vice. Healthy hobbies. You help your child find what interests them, what piques their interest. Find what it is, and that's one of the surest ways to keep them out of mischief. The habit of disorder was allowed to grow upon her as a child, and her share of the blame is that she has failed to cure herself. I love this because it doesn't matter what you were or were not trained as a child to do. At some point in your life, you have to stand up and teach yourself how to do it. The mother who takes pains to endow her children with good habits secures for herself smooth and easy days, while she who lets their habits take care of themselves has a weary life of endless friction with the children. Here it is, people. This was a huge eye-opener for me, that if I wanted to secure smooth and easy days for myself, I had to be present with my children now to develop the habits of the good life I was looking for. What would I like to see happen? And then teach them how to do that. It's not going to happen by themselves. Children are born innocent, not civilized. Training in habit becomes a habit. I can testify to this. The first time you learn a new habit, it's so hard. But the more you learn a new habit and another and another and another, it does get easier. It becomes the question, how am I going to change my life for the better next? When a child grows stupid over a lesson, it is time to put it away. Let him do another lesson as unlike the last as possible, and then go back with freshened wits to his unfinished task. This has been so vital for homeschooling my own kids, because it's teaching me that I don't have to break the slate over their heads. If it's not happening at this exact second, do something else. Switch topics. If you're on math, switch to English. Do something else. It will come with persistence, and it will come eventually. Remember to breathe and just take a break. To be continued in part 2. Thanks for watching.